so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. I don't think so. No, 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 no. It's never, ever, 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 ever gonna happen. I don't think so. No, 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 no. Maybe someday you'll have it your way. Maybe someday.
Today we are going to discuss on the module of attention. The objectives of studying this module are to know the nature and concept of attention, understand the importance of various aspects of attentional processes, and determine the factors that influences the attentional processes. So now let us pay attention to the module on attention. Nature and concept of attention. Understanding of the nature of attentional processes can be done with the help of an analogy such as antenna on your roof. Our sense organs are the windows to the external world. These windows are capable of picking up any amount of available information, but there is a mechanism of regularity that filters or partially blocks out some inputs and allows others to get through. In this sense, our sense organs are like dish antenna on the roof that can pick up all available signals, but turning in our television system selects only the signal for which it has been tuned by the viewer, and the remaining signals are filtered out. In the same manner, the attentional processes limit or block out the reception of stimuli in a selective manner. In this sense, the attentional process serves the function of tuning by filtering out the information selectively for being processed. This selective function or filtering functions are governed by the brain. These processes serves various functions in the organization of our perceptions and other cognitive functions. Attention is a mental process and not a mental power. There can be no attention in the absence of interest. The thought of conscious life is impossible in the absence of attention. Attention creates readiness for doing a work. Attention is a selective process. Attention is a past of consciousness. It does not mean consciousness. The nature of our attention is also affected by the various factors that determines the attention process of the organism. Objective and subjective factors that determine our attention. It is true that attention is a selective activity, and volition of our mind is very important to determine our attention. But despite this, there are some factors in the objects, that is objective factors, as well as in the individual himself, that is the subjective factors, which can influence our attention. These factors which determine our attention are divided into two types: objective factors and subjective factors. Objective factors are the factors that pertain to particular external aspects of object which are inherent within the objects. They are movement. A moving object draws our attention more easily than a stationary object. For example, flickering lights draw our attention than non-flickering lights. A moving vehicle draws our attention more than a stationary vehicle. Intensity: more intense light, sound or smell draws our attention more easily than less intense one. For example, a high voltage bulb will be observed quicker than a low voltage bulb, very bright color than dim color, or a very loud sound than a normal sound. Novelty: new kinds of objects draw our attention quickly. Advertising agencies adopt this technique very effectively. For example, latest fashion dress, shoes, pens, etc. Size: a bigger or a smaller object draws the attention of people very easily than average level size of an object. For example, a 7 feet tall man, a 2 feet dwarf man, a very huge multi-storied building can draw our attention quickly. Change: a change in our environment draws our attention quickly. For example, a regular sound of a moving clock does not draw our attention, but the moment it stops, our attention is diverted. A showpiece placed in a new place, a radio playing a song, stops due to electricity failure, draws our attention. Repetition. When a stimulus is presented repeatedly, our attention is diverted. For example, repeated horn of a fire brigade or ambulance. Clarity. An object or sound which can be experienced clearly draws our attention than the stimuli which are not clear. For example, during night times, stars and planets which are seen clearly draw our attention. Colors. Colorful objects draw our attention more easily than black or white objects. Contrast. An object that is strikingly different from its background draws our attention. For example, a black spot on a white shirt. Subjective factors. These factors refers to individuals. These are inherent in people. There are many subjective factors which determine our attention. They are interest. Object of our interest draw our attention immediately. For example, while moving on a road, a sportsperson is attracted towards the shop where sports materials are placed. A person who is interested in a particular singer will immediately divert his attention to the moment he listens his voice. Motives. Motives are powerful forces which make us to divert our attention. For example, a hotel will draw the attention of a hungry person because he has a drive for food. Mental set. Our set or readiness of mind is very important in attending to any stimulus. For example, when a person is in fantasy, he may not listen to any call. On the other hand, if he is waiting for a phone eagerly, he will listen to it immediately. Emotional state. Attention is disturbed during emotional state. It also affects our perception. For example, when a person is highly excited due to fear, he may not listen or understand what others are saying. Habits. Our attention is diverted automatically towards the things to which we are habituated. For example, a smoker remembers smoking even if he is otherwise busy in some work. A person habituated to take food at a particular time remembers food at correct time. Attention of a nurse is automatically diverted towards a serious patient. Concept of attention. Attention is the term used or given to the perceptual processes that select certain inputs for inclusion in our conscious experience or awareness at any given time. It is the process involving the act of listening and concentrating on a topic, object, or event for the attainment of desired ends. Attention is an important mental process. Without it, other mental processes like imagination, learning, and thinking, etc., are neither possible nor useful. We cannot think about anything unless we concentrate our attention on it. Attention is considered that faculty which may be diverted towards any object at will. Attention, instead of being a mental faculty, is a part of mental activity. It is also a selective process. When we pay our attention towards any stimulus, it means that we have removed our attention from other stimuli. Our mind selects only one stimulus which is best suited for it, for paying attention. Attention also depends on one's interest. Definition of attention. Here are some of the definitions of attention that we are going to discuss. According to William James, is the taking possession of mind in clear and vivid form of one out of what may seem several simultaneously possible objects or trains of thought. It implies withdrawal from some things in order to deal effectively with others. McDougall says attention is merely conation or striking considered from the points of its effect on cognitive process. Edward B. Titchener says attention determines the content of consciousness and influence the quality of conscious experience. Thus, attention is essentially process and not a product. It helps in our awareness or consciousness of our environment, which is of selective kind. because in a given time we can concentrate or focus our consciousness on a particular object only. The concentration provided by the process of attention helps us in the clarity of the perception of the perceived object or phenomenon. Thus, attention is not merely a cognitive factor, but is essentially determined by emotions, interests, attitude and memory. So, attention is a process which is carried out through cognitive abilities and helped by emotional and behavioral factors to select something out of the various stimuli present in one's environment and to bring it in the center of one's consciousness in order to perceive it clearly for the deriving of desired end. Characteristics of attention. Let us talk or discuss about some of the characteristics of attention. Attention is always changing. Attention is always an active center of our experience. Attention is selective. Attention is continuous. Attention increases the clarity of the object. Attention is indivisible for complex tasks. The limitation of attention somewhat depends upon relation between the things. Further characteristics of attention. The basic interrelated characteristics of attentions are discussed as follows. Alerting function. Let us consider an example to demonstrate the alerting nature of attention. When the teacher asks the student in the classroom to pay attention to what he or she is teaching, it means that the student can voluntarily create conditions that prepare him or her to be receptive and alert in the class. Attention in this sense refers to a state of focused awareness with readiness to respond. Selective function. The most important function of attention is selectivity. Selectivity refers to a process by which attention is focused on stimulus or stimuli of ongoing interest and other stimuli are ignored. Selective attention acts as a filter that allows some information in and the other unwanted ones out. The best example of selective attention is that of the tea party effect. In selective listening, generally referred to as cocktail party effect, you are in a tea party organized by your friends. You will observe that in such parties, people take some snacks and cup of tea and stand and chat in small groups of 4 to 5 people. You are busy chatting with your friends in such one group. When conversations are going on, you suddenly hear someone mentioning your name in one of the adjoining groups. Your attention is diverted from your friend to whom you were talking to the group from where you heard your name. Your friend is still talking to you, but your attention is diverted to the other side to listen to what someone there is saying about you. Apparently, you pose that you are listening to what your friend is talking, but you are unable to register anything. This example demonstrates that we can selectively attend to one task at a time. The ongoing task in this case is ignored. Limited capacity channel. It has been established through research that we have limited capacity to process information that is available in the outside world. That is, task that requires attentional resources cannot be carried out simultaneously because we have limited capacity to process the incoming information. We process the task one at a time, called as serial processing. For example, if you are asked to listen to music as well as read this page in your textbook, you cannot carry out both the tasks simultaneously or in parallel. If you attend to music, then during this period you are not able to comprehend what you were reading and vice versa. That means when the task requires attentional resources, when the task is actually difficult, you can carry on with one task at a time called serial processing. Carrying two tasks simultaneously is not possible. However, if one task is highly practiced or routinized, then it is possible to carry on with two tasks simultaneously. For example, when you are a practiced driver, you can drive the car as well as converse with other persons sitting by your side. This is possible because driving requires little or no attentional resources or mental effort because of high level of practice. and you can pay attention to what the other person is talking. This condition is called automaticity in information processing. Vigilance function: maintaining attention on a task continuously for some time, like looking at the radar screen, is called vigilance or sustained attention. It has been found that attending to a task for long is taxing, particularly if the task is monotonous and it leads to decrease in performance. You will be able to understand vigilance better by doing the following activities. Attention as a postural adjustment. While attending, we usually tend to adjust our body positions and the related sense organs in such a way as to receive the particular stimuli most readily. In other words, we tend to select the significant or valuable stimuli from among a wide range of stimuli and situate the same into our focus of attention. Attention as clearness in consciousness. While attending the events, situations or objects which are attended to, they tend to be much more vivid or clear than those which are not attended to. At any given time, something is filtered out and taken into the focus or center of our consciousness, while others remain in the periphery or margin and therefore do not provide any awareness of their presence or give only a dim awareness. For example, when one is grossly involved in reading a novel, the context of the novel will be in their focus, while other things such as ticking sound of a watch in the room, voices of people around, though potentially intense, remain in the margin and therefore do not give any vivid or clear experience. Attention as a set towards action. Attention is the readiness to respond in a particular way to a stimuli or situation. For example, in military, the order march is response by army man in a particular way, either by marching forward or backward, depending upon the prior command to get them ready to march in the command. The leader of the squad gives the command, squad will march forward, and then says march. Here the prior command is forward. This command given to get the squad ready to march in a particular direction, and then final command of march is given. The prior command induces readiness or makes the squad mentally set the act upon the final command without losing any time. Different aspects of attention. 4 major conditions of attention which refer to the duration and degree of attention are discussed. Span of attention, division of attention, distraction of attention, fluctuation of attention, voluntary and involuntary attention. Span of attention. Span of attention refers to the amount of information an observer can take into his focus of attention from among a complex array of stimuli at a single momentary exposure. Span refers to the number of letters or digits or sounds that an individual can grasp within a given period of time. Using an instrument called as tachistoscope, and on the basis of several experiments, Moeller has reported that our span of attention varies within the limit 7 plus or minus 2. This is also commonly known as the magic number. Division of attention. Attending to more than one act at a time is known as division of attention. In such situations, we divide our attention towards more than one act. For example, a tailor will be stitching the cloths and also speaking to his customers. A nurse will be observing the pulse of a patient and also changes on his faces. We ride a vehicle while speaking to our friends. In such activities, the attention is or may be divided, and it is possible to perform more than one act because either attention is shifted from one act to another rapidly, or our attention is concentrated on only one act and the remaining activities are carried on automatically, and or both the tasks performed simultaneously are not very tasking or different from each other. Distraction of attention. When our attention is concentrated on a particular act or stimulus, some other more powerful stimulus may draw our attention and hold it to remain there for more time. It may or may not return to the earlier stimulus. For example, while reading a book, our concentration will be on the book. Meanwhile, if we listen to an attractive music sound, our attention may be shifted towards that under such circumstances. Physically, we may be reading the book, but we may not follow the contents. Students are much affected by distraction. Hence, they should learn to have concentration of mind on studies. Fluctuation of attention. It appears for us that our attention can be concentrated on a particular act for more time. But careful observation clearly shows that we cannot concentrate on a single act or stimulus for more than few seconds. When we are seeing an object or listening to a sound, after few seconds, the attention will be shifted towards other stimulus or other area of the stimulus for a fraction of time and returns to the original stimulus. This process is called fluctuation. Here, we will be unable to notice these short shifts. This phenomena can be demonstrated experimentally. In the figure, you can see on constant observation, the figure appears for some time as faces and waves for some other time. Similarly, in the figure of a woman, constant attention leads to perception of the face of an old woman and young lady alternately. And in the third image appears as a face and sometimes appears as a written word called as lyre. Such a temporary shift in attention is called fluctuation of attention. Voluntary and involuntary attention. Voluntary attention is of intended nature. Sometimes an individual will divert his attention towards a particular activity or situation deliberately. It is not diverted spontaneously, but after some struggle. For example, while sitting in a class, the student diverts their attention towards the lecture even if it is not interesting, because they have to pass the examination. Thus, whenever we intentionally or deliberately look or listen, this process of attention is called as voluntary attention. That is, active or voluntary attention is precisely what the name implies. Attention as the result of definitely self-initiated activity. At times, the attention is diverted towards some other activity without the conscious effort, which may be against the will of the individual. This is known as involuntary attention. For example, though the student is listening to a lecture with all interest, some loud sound outside the classroom may draw his attention towards it, or alarming siren sound, sudden crying of a child, an intense flash of lightning, etc. But despite the fact that when one is thoroughly immersed in some pleasant undertaking, one becomes relatively insensitive to sensory stimuli, which otherwise would be noticed. The further fact determinedly remains that even under such conditions, stimuli of sufficient intensity will force themselves into consciousness. Since involuntary attention is drawn because of the potential force of the stimulus, it is often termed as stimulus-based attention. On the other hand, the voluntary attention depends on the conscious will of the person, organism, so it is also termed as organism-based attention. To summarize this module, attention is a process that selects some of the sensory inputs to provide conscious experience. It selectively brings certain limited information into the focus of conscious experience. Attention has certain aspects such as span of attention, division, distraction and fluctuation of attention, voluntary and involuntary attention, which determines the functioning, processing and selective nature of attentional process. Attentional process is influenced by various objective determinants such as movement, intensity, novelty, size, change, repetition, clarity, color, contrast and subjective determinants such as interest, motives, mental set, emotional state, habits, etc., which affects our attention.